The sun dipped low behind the rolling hills of Willow Creek, casting long shadows over the golden fields. The ranch had once been full of life, laughter echoing through the barn, horses running free, and a proud man who ruled his land with quiet strength. But after his wife passed, Caleb Hunter had become a ghost in his own home. The great rancher who once smiled at every sunrise, now barely looked beyond his whiskey glass. The horses grew restless, the ranch hands left one by one, and silence became the loudest thing on that land. It was on one lonely autumn evening that Clara Bennett arrived, a caretaker from the small town of Ashwood, hired to look after Caleb's aging mother who had fallen ill. She came with nothing but a small bag, a letter of recommendation, and eyes that held more kindness than Caleb had seen in years. When she stepped down from the wagon, the cold wind caught her hair, and the world seemed to still for a heartbeat. Caleb didn't say much, just tipped his hat and muttered, "You'll find the quarters out back. Supper's at 7. He didn't trust strangers, not since the war, not since heartbreak had turned his heart to stone. Clara's first days at Willow Creek were quiet. She moved gently through the house, tending to the old woman who, despite her frailty, spoke with warmth about her son. "He's a good man," she whispered one night, "just broken where no one can see." Clara would nod and smile, even as she felt her own heart ache. She'd known loss too, a fiancé taken by fever before their wedding day, a future that vanished like morning mist. Perhaps that's why she didn't fear Caleb's silence. She understood it. She respected it. Each evening, she cooked supper, biscuits, stew, roasted potatoes, the kind of food that made a man remember home. Caleb would eat in silence, occasionally glancing up at her, wondering what kind of woman worked all day with no complaint, and still found a way to hum softly as she cleaned the dishes. One night, after a storm rolled in and lightning danced over the hills, Clara found Caleb sitting by the fireplace holding a worn photograph. She didn't ask who it was. She simply placed a cup of hot coffee beside him and said softly, "Sometimes, the only way through the storm is to let someone walk with you." He looked up, startled by her words, not because they were poetic, but because they were true. Days turned into weeks. Caleb began to notice the small changes. Clara brought the laughter of his mother returning, the scent of wildflowers on the table, the warmth that had slowly crept back into the house. One afternoon, while fixing the corral fence, he saw her in the distance feeding the horses, her dress swaying in the breeze. Something stirred inside him, something he thought he'd buried years ago. But Caleb was a man of pride, and pride makes men foolish. So he built walls even as his heart begged him to tear them down. It wasn't until one cold evening, when his mother's health worsened, that he truly saw Clara's strength. She stayed up all night by the old woman's side, whispering prayers, holding her hand, refusing to rest. When morning came, the old woman smiled weakly and whispered, "You'll take care of him, won't you, Clara?" Tears filled Clara's eyes as she nodded, not knowing what the promise would mean. Caleb stood silently at the doorway, watching, and for the first time, he realized maybe God hadn't sent Clara just to care for his mother. Maybe she was here to heal him too. Winter came early that year, covering Willow Creek in a blanket of white. The old ranch felt quieter, emptier. Caleb's mother had passed peacefully one frosty morning, holding Clara's hand. Her last words were a whisper of peace. "Don't run from love, son." The funeral was small, with just a few ranch hands and the pastor. Clara stood beside Caleb, her gloved hand brushing his arm, offering comfort he didn't know how to accept. After everyone left, Caleb stayed by the grave until the stars appeared, his heart aching with a grief that felt too familiar. When he finally walked back to the house, he found Clara sitting by the fire, eyes glistening. "I'm sorry," she said softly. She was a good woman. Caleb nodded, his jaw tight. "You don't need to stay anymore. You've done enough." But Clara didn't move. She looked at him with quiet strength. "And who'll make sure you don't fall apart?" That night, the silence between them spoke louder than words. Days passed, and Caleb tried to throw himself into work, mending fences, feeding cattle, anything to keep his hands busy and his mind quiet. But wherever he went, he saw her, her kindness, her courage, her gentle laugh. One evening, as snow fell outside, he returned to find her singing softly to the horses in the barn. Her voice was like a prayer carried by the wind. He stopped, listening. When she turned, surprise flickered across her face. "You shouldn't be out here," she said. "You'll freeze." He smiled faintly. I've been colder inside the house than I ever could be out here." Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them, the truth both had been afraid to face. Weeks turned into months, and what began as companionship deepened into something neither could deny. Clara brought life to every corner of the ranch, laughter to the kitchen, color to the porch, and warmth to Caleb's heart. One morning, he found her sitting on the porch steps, the rising sun painting her hair gold. He walked up slowly, nervous as a boy. "You came here to take care of my mother," he said quietly. "But somehow you ended up taking care of me." Clara looked up, her eyes shimmering. "Maybe we both needed someone to stay." Caleb reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small ring, his mother's, polished and simple. "Clara Bennett," he said, voice trembling. "You came here as a caretaker. But would you stay as my forever?" Tears streamed down her cheeks as she nodded, unable to speak. In that moment, under the endless western sky, the ranch came alive again, not with noise, but with the heartbeat of love reborn. Years later, folks would say they could still hear laughter from the porch of Willow Creek, the kind that only comes from two souls who found home in each other.